Most fans of the Mass Effect series have an unspoken understanding for when it comes to the companions our Commander Shepard meets upon their journey. At least one of these 6 near-perfectly crafted characters is somebody's favourite, and for many, they each have their distinguishing qualities and flaws that make them the cornerstone of this incredible sci-fi franchise. Greetings, Spacefarers! I'm Michael, and welcome to MTJ Disorder, a place where I like to rant, muse and debate various topics surrounding my many passions. If you're into science fiction gaming and other action adventures, then go ahead and subscribe and like this video for more. I would like to start by prefacing that this is my own personal opinion and tied quite intimately to my very own headcanon playthrough, which, I might add, is very seldom a completionist campaign and often thoroughly grey when it comes to my alignment. That being said, please let me know in the comment section below if you agree or if your rankings are entirely different. This is where I place the 6 companions from the first Mass Effect. Let's get started. Alright, let's get this one out of the way. Sitting at the bottom of the list, I should imagine a large quantity of those watching knew this was coming. It's Ashley Williams. There's not much to really say, she's quite universally hated for her blind bigotry and wooden jar-headed dialogue. The script tries to justify this by making her a product of her militaristic upbringing, but that only serves to make her less compelling in the long run. She seldom has any personality trait that isn't linked back to her family in some way, which I suppose as of the first game is her most redeeming quality. But she's ultimately just not that interesting. Unless you're religious or a fan of poetry, I don't see her as a good love interest option either, and as a result her making it off of Virmire alive is not likely. I do have to give her bonus points for being really overpowered as a soldier in combat, but that's about it. Up next we have Kaiden Alenko. He also comes off as wooden at first glance, but he ranks higher purely based on the fact that if you inquire into his past, it becomes clear he has a reason for being this way. Unlike Ashley, who is blinded by her upbringing, Kaiden is the strongest person he could hope to be despite it. Yes, he is kind of boring, but he's also the first person to show compassion in the game's very first scene.
Nihilus gave you a compliment, so you hate him.
I often chose to save him on Virmire mostly because he is the right option to arm the bomb, but also because Ashley's narrative I find ends perfectly in an honourable sacrifice. Kaiden's death absolutely could be seen as a compelling tragedy, but he does show that he nonetheless has more to prove. I also find his lack of personality outside of his tortured past makes him a pretty poor option for the love interest. His combat abilities are more rounded as a sentinel, but he does also offer the ability to balance out your team if you wish to bring more firepower. Up next we have Liara T'Soni. Liara is introduced last in the campaign, and from the start it is obvious she is meant to be the canon love interest. Whereas I personally find that to be problematic in a role-playing game, the way she is written does make her hard to resist. Unlike the first 2 entries, she isn't exactly tied to her past as a way to develop her character. She does have parental problems as we find out with Benezia, but that ultimately ends up being a plot device just to get her on the team rather than character development. Yes, there is some offhanded dialogue about how she wants nothing to do with her, but most of Liara's personality is built through her own agency. She is learned, has a deep interest in the Protheans and archaeology. Her banter with Shepard oozes chemistry, and her bumbling awkwardness when revealing her attraction to them is adorable and hilarious.
I only meant that you would be an interesting specimen for an in-depth study. No, that's even worse.
She's relatively useless as a squad mate, which only serves to emphasise how she is intended to be the default love interest, ultimately diluting her character. As an adept, there isn't much she offers that other squad mates and Shepard themselves can't provide. Now there is a huge leap here in quality of companion, but some of you may be disappointed to hear that third is where I place Garrus Vakarian. And I feel this is a perfect place to emphasise that this is my rankings based purely on the first game alone. Garrus, out of all the companions, is the first one who ties into the game's theme of Paragon versus Renegade. At every turn you either have an option to correct Garrus's renegade mentality and push him down a more honourable path, or galvanise his resolve as a shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. He is the third companion in the game who displays some sort of parental issues, as a lot of his story is traced back to how his career path was to follow in his father's footsteps. In Garrus's case, however, it is portrayed as the catalyst for so much internal conflict. A conflict that comes to resolution in a very satisfying character-specific mission.
You're all crazy!
Sadly, in this game you cannot romance Garrus, but the foundations are laid given how the complexity of his story leaves the player wanting more. As a squad mate, he is slightly more balanced than Liara, but as an infiltrator his abilities are somewhat lacking given the game's Rambo-style artificial intelligence. If he is on my team on hardcore or insanity, he is always certain to be the first to die. My runner-up is none other than our favourite immunocompromised Quarian, Tali Zorah. Her development in the first game isn't the most complex, but it is perhaps the most interesting. She is introduced to us as this sort of damsel in distress, but that perception is quickly eradicated in style as she combats the Shadow Broker's agents on the Citadel. She is further shown to be not only resourceful but also quite cunning, as just moments after her introduction, we find out she is the one who has discovered the truth behind Saren's betrayal.
Eden Prime was a major victory. The beacon has brought us one step closer to finding the conduit.
As the campaign progresses, she ends up being our window into the background of the Geth, the game's primary enemy type. Through her, we learn a lot about the status of AIs in this future and how her species' hubris is the underlying cause of that. And we don't learn this through expository dialogue exclusively. As with Garrus, she takes us on a companion-specific mission which adds more to the Geth Quarian backstory, but also gives us insight into where Tali is in her life's journey. She's the eager and naive member of the crew, and as a result undergoes a significant amount of growth, beginning the story as a lost, vulnerable kid on her pilgrimage, but ending it as a strong and valued crewmate of both the Normandy and her own people. She isn't romanceable in this game either, but I think for good reason. Quarian society does not look fondly on their youth wasting time on such things before finishing their pilgrimage. She is very useful in combat, given that the majority of our foes are synthetic. With an array of hacking and sabotage abilities, I often have her on my squad, so I can pit enemies against each other when outnumbered and gain access to just about any crate or locked door. And finally, it's the crew's bruising badass Grandad Krogan himself, Urdnot Wrex. One final reminder, this is just my opinion, so my bias will obviously show here, and I already have a huge soft spot for the Krogan as it is, but to me, Wrex is undoubtedly the greatest companion in the first Mass Effect game. His introduction is mysterious and tense. Initially, you're not quite sure if he's friendly or not. He's consistently making decisions independent of Shepard. Even as a Paragon, you will butt heads with him more than once. He is also the hardest character to truly break down. The first couple of conversations you have with him on the Normandy are limited to war stories and anecdotes. But as you continue to impress him both as a soldier and as a leader, he gradually opens up, revealing to you that his species has undergone a slow and brutal genocide known as the Genophage. He explains how it has not only affected the Krogan as a whole, but driven him personally away into mercenary life as he slowly becomes more and more fed up with the unstable, traditionalist ways of his people, constantly fighting over the scraps of a dying empire. If you gain enough brownie points with him, he will reveal to you how it is his own family who are the major belligerents in regards to his attitude towards the current state of the Krogan, and that his own father even tried to have him killed. After this reveal, Wrex will be the third and final member of the crew to send you on a companion-specific mission, one which can be vital to perhaps one of the defining moments of the entire trilogy. During the mission to Virmire, Wrex becomes conflicted about the nature of the mission which could result in the destruction of the Genophage cure, which you can really sympathise with him after all you've gone through. He makes terrific points about the lines between friends and foe becoming blurry, and you can resolve this situation if you have banked enough charm and intimidate points, but it becomes much easier if your Shepard has gained an actual rapport with him. His character growth is so phenomenal that his survival in this situation hangs on whether or not you bother to actually discover that growth. For if you chose to ignore him and treat him as just another gun, tragically it will lead to his death at the hands of... let me just check here 1 second. Ashley! Sadly, he's not romanceable, which I wish, but nonetheless his depth of character is unmatched in this game. As a squad mate, he is also by far the best to have in any situation. He has combat strength, fitness, armor bonuses, and on top of being a tank, he has an assortment of biotic abilities, making him the best companion by a large margin, in my opinion of course. What do you think? Agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments. I'm eager to know who everyone's favourite is. Be sure to hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell notification icon to be informed of the next video. Keyless Salai, my friends, and until next time...
I should go.